Amit would be.
Hello, a very warm welcome to all of you. Good evening, and thank you for your patience. I'm Vinay Dora from the NASSCOM ProductSkills team and an entrepreneur with Crowd Product. A little bit about the NASSCOM ProductSkills. We are a community on a mission to make India the product superpower. NASSCOM Product Conclave is an annual conference, but also NPS, which is NASSCOM ProductSkills, envisions to work, build, and nurture 50,000 plus product professionals by 2025 and creating a world's largest product community. So today, I would like to take this opportunity to very cordially welcome what would be another intriguing webinar. In the past, we have had sessions on customer centricity, financial acumen by product managers, winning by positioning, PM in a startup versus large corporate. And today we're looking at innovation, demand-led versus invention-led. Right? Amidst the entire structural shift and difficult times we have witnessed a lot of demand-led innovations and trends also in invention-led. So what is really driving this new wave of innovations? To understand this, I would like to introduce to you the moderator of today's session, Sunita, who is a product manager for sales enablement. She's part of Accenture. And Sunita, over to you to introduce the other panelists.
Thanks, Vinay, for that. And thanks, NASSCOM, for this opportunity. Hi, everyone. I will be moderating this session for the next 1 hour. Today, we are discussing a very exciting topic, innovation, which is demand-led or invention-led. Now, the pandemic COVID-19 has actually disrupted nearly every walks of life, right? Whether it's personal, whether it's professional walks of life, there has been a disruption in the way, let's say, you interact with customers, let's say how customers has chosen products and services from you, and the way delivery has been done for the customers' products and services. So basically, there is a change in the foundation of how business is done. I'm actually reminded of the Chinese proverb right now on the crisis, where it says, when the winds of change blows, some people build walls while some build windmills. So basically, it's a perspective towards it, right? So some saw the danger in that situation, whereas some saw that this is an opportunity to grow and innovate. And we have seen in the last 2 years, there's been a tremendous increase of innovation in business. On the other side, we also saw that there are disruptions, there are failures in business. But however, prioritization of innovation is the key to unlock growth for post-crisis. Today, in this discussion, we'll be talking about innovation, the different types of innovation. How do you instill that innovative mindset in people? How do you drive innovation in your companies? And for this, we have two eminent panel members with us today who are very apt for this discussion because they have led product innovations. Let me introduce them to you. Dr. Leta Iyer is the VP of AI Research and Engineering for Rakuten. A physicist by passion, she has over 25 plus years of experience in product management and artificial intelligence domain across multiple brands like ISRO, HCL, TCS, IBM, etc. Before joining Rakuten, she was global head of AI digital engineering services in Royal Bank of Scotland business. Dr. Leta Iyer has a successful track record of working in different areas of AI research and development. Welcome, Leta, to the discussion.
Thank you.
Yogesh Rao is the VP product at United Health Group. Yogesh has over 25 plus years of experience in product management domain, has served organizations like Yahoo and Novell. Yogesh comes with a successful track record of managing multi-million-dollar product lines and commercialization digital products from concept to launch. Yogesh brings global experiences in developing business strategy and product vision for consumers and enterprise SaaS products with expertise in driving innovation in customer experiences through digital transformation. Welcome, Yogesh, to the discussion.
Thanks.
So let's start our discussion for today. And audience, please post your questions in the chat. We would be taking them up during the end of this discussion. So Yogesh, my first question is to you. We have seen that the pandemic has accelerated the hospital and healthcare systems innovations, right? We have seen the application of latest technology like AI for scanning of CT scans, scanning of X-rays, scanning of MRI scans. We have also seen virtual reality, usage of cloud computing, usage of virtual care. And in fact, recently, you have also posted in LinkedIn about how the future of healthcare is in home. What is innovation to you, and how do you define innovation?
So first and foremost, good evening to everyone. So in terms of how I look at innovation, Sunita, being a product management person, I look at life in a fairly simplistic manner in terms of if there is a problem that needs to be solved, whatever solves that problem in the most simplistic way is how I look at innovation as. And as you very rightly pointed out, I recently posted on LinkedIn about home healthcare. It's an area that's very close to my heart due to some personal experiences of my own. So therein lies, like a very simple use case for someone, like who needs support with providing care for their loved one at their home. What can be done to make their life easy? So that's how I kind of think of innovation. I have a three idiots kind of a point of view when it comes to what innovation ought to be. Don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple. Anything that simplifies human life makes it easier for us to get by our daily routine is a good innovation. Is how I look at innovation.
That's very interesting point of view, Yogesh. Three idiots point of view, but yeah, very short and crisp point of view. Lata, coming to you. So you are from Rakuten, and which is one of the biggest e-commerce companies in Japan, right? And e-commerce also saw a tremendous change in transformation in 2021, and I'm sure this is still going to continue in the current year as well. So to stay relevant on business, because large and small players are coming into the B2C market, to stay relevant on the competition, I'm sure you would have to adopt some innovation and some innovative techniques, right? What is your viewpoint on innovation?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Especially the pandemic has really brought a lot of good opportunities across the whole industry verticals, and e-commerce is one of the big impact, right? And suddenly, if you have millions of our customers going through a pandemic situation, your systems are not equipped enough to handle those situations, right? And you still have to cater those customer base, and with a very good experience, we still want to give the right NPS and also the customer satisfaction. So definitely the situation, people, in fact, some of the e-commerce platforms that were built were not actually modeled in such a way that it would be able to handle such a huge population businesses, right? That's where many of, at least from my field, if I talk about AI and machine learning, some of these models went into an outage, right? And it couldn't handle. So that's why those kind of situations, it really gave like a black swan concept, right? So how do you ensure that these models are not actually tightly coupled and work with a very defined boundaries? That's why our algorithms have to be far more encompassing, and it should be able to take these boundaries far than what they would typically anticipate in the normal environment. So, I mean, you touched upon the e-commerce. Obviously, we are taking that learning as a retrospection and see that you don't just build the model what you typically the population consumer behavior would be, but you anticipate what if something happens to those. How does your system comes into the default thing, right? Something if it doesn't work for the huge population data set, if intelligent-based e-commerce system should be able to come to a default mode. At least if it can't handle the 1 million customers, there should some way it should be able to cater to the minimum customers and some basis. So for me, the innovation is obviously one, it comes as a situational base, like as you talked about pandemic thing. So we as an organization keep all that black swan ideas also into picture when we build these large platforms and systems. And then, yes, of course, for me, it's like, any organization, any big companies, right? When they are into product mindset, right? It's a cultural that is very different than what typically a service company would do for their day-to-day bread and butter, right? To maintain your bottom line as well as grow your revenue. But the fantastic opportunity that you get from the innovation is like what your company is placed at, right? So obviously there are different innovations you would like to do, whether it's a disruptive innovation on one end you want to go, or you want to go a continuous innovation, which typically most of the service companies would like to do, as Yogesh was mentioned, right? I would like to keep simple. So obviously you would like to do the incremental innovation so that you're able to derive that advantage for the sustainability. But having said, Rakuten is typically a very placed company where it not only does a continuous innovation, but it also does a very radical innovation as well. So we do a lot of a moonshot race. So those moonshots are there, something that you can plan something 10 years ahead, right? Like say quantum computing investment and all is something our organization has started thinking about where we will do use case. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's really wonderful. These are the various types of innovations, I would say, and probably it depends on the demand that comes in, or if you are looking at a demand perspective, or if it's a invention perspective, you might have a change, or you might approach the innovation the way that you want it. This is my thought on it. But how about Yogesh? What is your thought? So Lata has mentioned the various types of innovation. How do you drive innovation in your company? Is it demand based? Is it invention based? Do you have a strategy to picking up one type of innovation over the other? Does it depend on, let's say, the culture of the company, the management style of the company, the maybe the organizational long-term goals of the company? How do you pick the kind of innovations?
So that's a really good question, Sunita. In terms of driving innovation, I am a strong believer in innovation not being a process, but more of a mindset, right? Because if you're in a setup where a lot of things are driven through process, look at agile. The concept of agile started as a very simple thing, an agile manifesto, just 6-7 lines of what agile ought to be. We took that and we turned that into a process with, hey, there needs to be a sprint ceremony, there needs to be a daily scrum, there needs to be a this and a that. So somehow process tends to overpower the mindset, and the important thing is the principle and the mindset behind the activity. Innovation is not something I look at innovation more as something that happens every day. It's not something that happens once in a year as an event or as a process. So some things that we have done there is we have within our group an idea collection process where any engineer can contribute their idea, and we have a sprint called an IP sprint where a team can typically work on their own idea for a sprint while we are getting ready for the next big release. So what we typically do is we have the team members, we force them to contribute ideas. We are trying to force that mindset, knowing fully well that not everyone is geared towards that style of thinking. Some people are happy just telling me like, give me a backlog, I'll work on it. Others are always thinking about, hey, how can I do this better? Maybe can I build a linked list? Can I do something? So it's important to challenge such mindsets who are coming up with ideas. And then in other cases where people are more process driven and saying like, give me a backlog, it's important to tell them like, hey, don't be like a waiter in a restaurant, right? Where someone is giving you an order and you're just delivering on that order. Rather than that, like, think in terms of a chef. How can you make that person's experience that evening better, right? Come up as a suggestive thinking process over there. So IP sprints are one opportunity where our engineers can work on their own ideas. The second opportunity is like we have these hackathons, dev days, and such events that happen where we give an idea, we throw out a problem statement, and we say, come up with ideas to solve that problem. So in the IP sprint kind of a setup, anyone can work on anything, right? Then someone sees like, hey, it takes like 6 button clicks for something to happen. If you can bring it down to 3 button clicks, that's an improvement. Work on such ideas during the IP sprint. But during the hackathon event, what we typically do is we give a problem statement and we say like, work on that problem. So a part of 5 to 6 people, typically engineers with varying skill sets, come together, they try to solve a problem. And such events have also had some good outcome come out. So those are the two things that we do in terms of ensuring that that mindset is there. But generally, the bigger thing is the bigger principle there, like that we follow within our group, is to ensure that our engineers are able to think in terms of innovation, force that mindset on, so that they're not just being like robots, right? Like where a product manager is giving them some backlog and the engineers are delivering on it. So that's my thinking there, Sunita.
Thanks, Yogesh. I think you have touched upon two major points here. One is on the IP sprints. And I think that is one way where, like you said, there is a dedicated time set apart from your regular product development just for innovation and exploration, right? So there is that continuous exploration and learning also inculcated within the team, along with the product development also. So you're actually tackling two birds at once, even the demand that you have and also future innovations, if any. So that is indeed a great approach. And the second one, which you have touched upon, is the hackathon, which takes me to the thought that hackathon is a kind of an open innovation, right? So I think this approach is being used by lots of other companies as well. I could take the example of let's say Unilever. They have this open innovation approach where they extend this to the customers, where customers can provide their suggestions on the products and services, packaging services of Unilever. Even Salesforce has this. So there's a portal where the development community or the external customers or consumers can actually provide their suggestions, and bringing that innovation flavor also onto the ongoing development activities of the application. So it's also that it's an external team, and you have a huge influx of ideas coming in from that external team who's evaluating this for you and definitely growing your business. So wonderful two concepts that you have actually touched upon, Yogesh. Aleta, my question to you would be that in case of extensive research and you have these sprints ongoing for a long time, how do you, for instance, in case of inventions, how do you inject that business aspect into that the innovation? You have something ongoing in terms of a long-term invention, but you want to inject a business aspect or a business demand also into that invention. How do you come about that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, you have placed it correctly. So obviously, as an innovation, there are various streams through which you get ideas, right? So obviously, it's an externalization, which is obviously where your products and services are catered to the market, right? Your customers. They are the big touch points and the very great touch points to exactly tell you exactly what their feedback is about your product, right? So you get a lot of ideas, and that ends up into creating a huge backlog, and people are busy doing innovations, right? The other thing, obviously, is like obviously in an organizations like Rakuten, right, where a product is our main thing through which we cater 70 plus services to the organizations worldwide in 30 plus countries. So obviously, these products have to continuously, it had to meet its own expectation than what it has been doing so far, right? You need to continuously transform those products. So that is why in an organization like us, right, in Rakuten, while we continuously do that externalization, looking to the customers, find out where exactly we are placed into it. Are we still edge over the competitors? Is our product line still passing that benefit not only to the customers, but to the society as well? One of the things for my company really emphasizes on that transforming back to the society, right? It should also excite our employees, because why they are doing it's not about 9 to 6 o'clock job, right? So you need to continuously innovate, right? So there's a different way how you do it. So primarily, most of the things happen from a demand-led perspective, and that's one aspect. But to your question, right? We have actually also got a research arm. That's where I actually lead the organization from research and the cutting edge, latest and the greatest things. We continuously keep building new ideas, implement them in a sprint mode, of course, because nothing can work without agile mode, because any innovation and even inventive ideas, the breakthrough ideas for which we may not be able to define goal, we may not even be able to define the success criteria upfront. In those places, it becomes very essential that we stay focused. And we could have about 30 backlogs and saying that all these problems we want to solve. No, you have to ensure that what are the 20% of the problem statements you want to do that can impact you 80% of your backlogs, right? It's easy said than done, right? But then that should be a constant focus. Focus on few things. Your money and the budget is also limited, right? That's what you need to ensure, that you're focused on a problem. You focus on your asset, which is basically your people capability asset, right? So looking at all these things as a part of a strategy exercise, focus on few things, develop few things, and take those inventive things. We actually, before we put anything into a product, any ideas that we do, and especially in the AI area or in the high-tech areas, we publish the papers and as well as patents. And once I go into, and we have a very rich culture of publishing patents, right? And how many of them can produce patents? So one of the things that we said, we're not just publishing patents, but how many have challenged your patents. So it gives you an advantage for you to work in a research mode, because we just don't want to do a Me Too kind of exercise, right? So obviously, if you're doing a patent, that means it's a very unique thing. Like in the cancer research area, we are the first company that has got a photoimmunocancer therapy thing. Now, nobody has patented a thing, and we are completely aggressively working on this area because it's a very, very sensitive market. So yes, there are twofold when you put all these things into productionization. So you put something into patent, and then you actually continuously ensure that these things can go into product. And then we put it into a monitoring system, whether it has given the uplift. We should not make product very complex also, as Yogesh said, right? Just because something we have got a great patent, we don't want to do it. Only when the current solutions are not giving that right benefit, the right ROI, or it is not giving the right customer acquisition, we will start looking into all these various modes, especially in the AI area, right? You have a voice data, you have an image data, you have speech data. Every day there are new algorithms getting done and new data that we are generating from our own organization. That part of research is we try to put into the product and see that what is that additional science has given the additional benefit. And that's how, to answer your question, some of them are demand-led and many of them are innovation-led, and like a moonshot thing, publish through the patents, put into a product, measure your milestones, see that whether KPI is getting met, and that's the only way you can do it.
Okay, so you inject that business demand, or you probably demo your invention-led products in between, right? Maybe intermittent level when you reach a logical space also.
Yeah, I mean, like invention is very difficult, right? It is something people don't even know that they are going to do it. It's a very unsolved problem, right? And there is no funding also for invention, because suddenly there's a magical idea that happens. You're trying to solve one problem, something comes out, right? So that's why inventions can't be treated like typically like an innovation, right? So obviously sometimes you're lucky and you find something new. So those inventions have to be really taken care of through patent and then put it into the product.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of another question. I'll probably come back to you on that, Lata. Meanwhile, Yogesh, since you talked about IP sprints earlier, would there be some point of time where sales is prioritized and that is given more importance? The demand is given more importance, where you need to push aside the IP sprints. And let's say for now, customers are very well read, right? They are very much on top of the current trends and technology, that they question you as to whether you have this in your product, whether you are as competitive as the other product, which they are not using. And if they don't have it, they can even replace you. At this point of time, like even recently, I had a workshop with some of the end users where one of the end user was curious to know if the product that he was using actually applied AI on the product. And he wanted to know how and where this is applied and what is the business value that he gets on applying that AI. So at this point of time where the customers are so thorough on the new technology, do you think that there is an era that is shifting to a demand generated relationship over the invention related innovations?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, definitely the shift is happening, Sunita. It's always been there, to be honest with you. Because if you look at the typical sales situation, right, irrespective of whether we are talking about a very short sales cycle where something gets sold, like within a few minutes, like FMCG product, or something that's a very long sales cycle, like a B2B uh, product sales situation. Invariably, what anyone is looking for, the customer is typically looking for, is the most innovative solution for the problem that they have, right? They're not looking for a product, they're looking to solve a problem, right? um if you look at Uber or Ola or any of the platforms that are out there today, they are not there because they're some great technological advancement. They are, right, like no doubt about the fact that it's a technological advancement, but they're there because an average customer today goes to a new city. They have to take a auto rickshaw. They feel like they're getting fleeced, right? The auto guy is going to take them all around the city before they take them to the right place. They don't know where they're going. There's no transparency. There are any number of use cases out there, right? A lady who has to come back home late in the evening, you know, family members are perennially worried about safety situation. Those are the type of problems that Ola and Uber and all the other platforms that are out there are really are addressing, right? Think about it. So invariably, the customer is looking to solve their problem, and the the thing that I typically tend to think of is the person who can identify the problem that a customer is having, that the customer is also not aware of, is the person who's going to trump the market. Think about it, right? So I ask this question all the time and then invariably get the same answer, right? The reason why we wear analog watch, right? Think about it. When Casio came up with the LCD watch back in the 60s, it was supposed to be a killer to the analog watch, right? Like with the big needle and the small needle, right? You know what I'm talking about when I say analog clock. Casio was supposed to have killed it. But you think of it, even today, people have digital watch face. I have a digital watch face, which still shows minutes and hours and minutes with, like the big needle and the small needle. Why is that the case? Right? The reason is because most of us don't realize this. We don't look at time to find out what the time now is. We look at our clock to find out when my next meeting is, right? And if you want to know when your next meeting is, you need to our brain doesn't process 2 hours 15 minutes past midday in the afternoon. My next meeting is at 4 o'clock. 4 minus 2:15 is a very difficult mathematical calculation to make in your brain, right? If you have the big needle and the small needle, you can quickly say like, okay, I have 15 minutes or 30 minutes. We think in increment of 15 minutes, right? That's the reason why analog clocks are still around. So technology and innovation are good if they really solve a problem, right? That's always going to be the case, irrespective of what the technology is, right? So customers may occasionally say like, hey, am I using AI or am I not using AI? What they're really asking you is, are you able to really predict what I want, right? Is your problem, is your solution going to understand what I really want, right? Think of something as simple as keyboard input, right? Back in 60s, people were punching cards, right? There were punched card input devices. Moved from there to keyboard. moved from there to mouse, right? From mouse to swipe, right? On your mobile phone. Today you don't even have to swipe, you have to talk, right? Like speech is becoming an input device. What is the next step beyond that? You don't even have to say what you want. It guesses what you want. The application, that's where AI is, right? The domain of AI is. So when someone is saying like, hey, does your system have AI? What they're really asking you is, you know what all I do in my day. Can you predict what I'm going to do next? So that I don't even have to type, right? They're actually asking whether can you get rid of my input device completely,
Yeah.
right?
One step
So
further, right? Yeah.
right, exactly. So as long as we are thinking about uh, our product, we can never win in the marketplace. It's always about knowing what the customer really wants. And I mean, I'm a product manager. That's how my brain always thinks. Okay, it's like, what are we really? No one pays money to you unnecessarily, right? I had a Netflix account. I got it free for 30 days. Started watching some show. Now like we are on the $25 subscription. We are not paying $25 because I like Netflix. Okay, it's not because I like the Netflix CEO or my cousin works for Netflix. I pay money to Netflix because their shows are really good, and their video is it tells me what show I want to watch next. It knows that I have watched 3 shows about mobs and guns and things like that, so it's going to predict my next show, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you pay money only to things that really solve a problem. Otherwise you don't. I mean, to me, money is more of a validation of whether you're really solving the problem or not. If if you're giving free and people still don't come, then there is a problem. That's how I
Nice.
think about it, Sunita.
Very interesting stories. It's all about one step ahead than what the customer is thinking about
Yes,
or demanding, right? So there is a flavor of innovation on top of that demand that you would like to say.
absolutely, 100%. I mean, you need to know, as much as you can predict where your customer really wants to go and what are the unstated problems that they are not telling you, and you're solving it for them. You are the king in the marketplace. That's the reason why Steve Jobs is where he was, right? Before he left us.
Yeah. So on that note, Lata, so how do you build this? How do you drive or encourage as a leader? How do you encourage or inculcate this innovative mindset in the organization?
Yeah, and I see, as I said, right, driving innovation is a craft, right? Shifting different mindsets, competencies, and there's a lot of a level of abstractiveness also is there, right? Despite knowing your customer problem, customer needs, predicting in advance, right? But still, it's a very challenging thing. It has to be continuously done, proved, and implemented and tested out, right? Whether it is really doing the benefit. I'll keep saying this because again, every innovation is not something like it's a sideline job, right? It's a part of your business and a part of your day-to-day activity. And these all are funded actually. Most of your innovations are funded. The meaningful innovations are funded. I'm not talking about any Six Sigma, Black Belt project, process improvements, etc. That anyway, typically people have to do it. But obviously, since they are funded, you definitely want to be very conscious about your time. If something is really working out, you would continuously like to do it, and something that doesn't work out, you want to kill it out and still go ahead, right? So this kind of a rigor should be there as a part of your program. That's one thing. The other thing is like, at least the company should have some philosophy, right? At least if you ask about Rakuten, the name of the company itself is optimism, right? The meaning of Rakuten in Japanese is optimism. I think optimism means that's a philosophy as a brand you are inculcating into yourself, right? So that's why we embrace every day new ideas, right? So the moment you think about what company you are working into it, what culture you're driving it, so innovation becomes a part of your DNA actually. So unconsciously, subconsciously, we don't have to say, oh, okay, in order to get your high point in appraisal, you have to do innovation. No, if it is not innovation, then you are not even meeting your expectation. So that's again, I think that's a part of your culture. It should be coming naturally. And I also, one thing I would clearly, I do that, right? In every organization, whatever the strategy is decided for the organization from the top one, right? From the CEO to the level -1, 2, 3, I ensure that that is passed to every employee, team below me as well, right? My CEO passes, at least in the current organization, every Monday, we have a meeting called Asakai, right? In Japanese, Asakai means morning meeting. So every Monday morning, we religiously meet. Every employee meets, right? Wherever they are, in Boston, in Paris, in India, in Japan, any part of the countries where the company is based, we all gather at 9 o'clock. We just completely go to a standstill mode. Even if you're in an airport, we just we ensure that we don't do the booking anything around 9 o'clock, because we want to listen to the CEO first-hand information. What is that is getting launched, right? Last week, he launched the basketball game. This week, he launched about the BCP thing, about the 5G network. Oh, I really have every Monday goosebump, because I don't know what surprises we are coming into. Every day, I think our company is actually a new company. Last time it was a sports company. This week, it was like a BCP big 5G company, right? So when the CEO talks like that, and he keeps introducing to us, every employee feels very, very much part of that innovation, right? So it's not like that, okay, innovation is only for the leadership or the few product people. No, it comes to the end of the employee, because we are a product company, right? So I think like this behavior, right? Festivals that we do, like the CEO who does it on every Monday. And in fact, every month, we have called another beautiful thing we call Shimakai. I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot of Japanese words, but I'm saying just to emphasize, because Japan is known for all those rich cultures and the process excellence and that the operational abilities. You take some idea, they ensure that it gets implemented, right? It's not just something in the paper or in a patent form. So we have another beautiful thing called Shimakai. And in Shimakai, what we do is like, we celebrate our successes. How many patents have gone this week? How many papers have gone into publication? How many products have gone into market? How many customers have really got that customer experience? What is that we have done on the carbon emission disruption, especially the gas emission? Because that's a big project, our organization. And by next year, we have to reduce our carbon to zero carbon neutrality. We have taken such a massive project, right? So we just ensure that we see that every day we track all those things. Where have we done? Have we switched off the light, right? That's an innovation, right? Because electricity optimization is one way that will help you to go to a carbon neutrality much faster than we can say. The warehouses, the products that we buy from the merchants get and put it on this Echiba platform, right? We ensure that the warehouse is very close where the supply chain and things have to be routed to it. We are very conscious about doing that warehouse supply optimization. And the last but not least, we are like a product company. We have hypercomputers. We are talking about all these big computers. We're running the large machine learning models, which Yogesh was talking about. I would like to know one step ahead what my customer is thinking. If we want to run those kind of a massive models, which are like into petabytes of data, and the zillions of neural codes that you're running it, you're actually heating up your environment. So you better be prepared. So we run the green algorithms to test it out. Where are we actually dissipating and producing the heat and the energy to the environment system? So it's just not that because there was a Paris Agreement, we all agree to it. It's that like, what is in return, you're contributing to the society. End of the day, if we abuse our environment and ecosystem, the nature will not pardon us. So I think like this is all should be part of our subconsciousness, DNA. I think it should come naturally to people. And I think that's what the typically organization like Rakuten encourages. And I'm so happy because it's not just reduced to only few people in that, prestigious Harvard Hall, they are sitting and innovating. It's for every employee.
Yeah, I like that point where you brought in inclusiveness also into innovation. And even statistics say that in this inclusive kind of cultures have innovation mentality 6 times over the other companies. So that's a wonderful point that you have touched upon, and definitely the culture that of innovation and that constant creative idea generation that's happening in your organization. Coming from Accenture, we also place high value on innovation. We have regular competitions, regular challenges where employees are like they are pushed to think something creative out of the box, and there is also a focus on number of patents, like I like to mention. Moving on to the next question, Yogesh, let me get back to you. So Elon Musk has mentioned that if there is no failure, there is no innovation. What is your take on it? Have you faced or have you come across a failed innovation where it was due to many reasons? It could be a wrong test case, it could be a wrong business case approach. But have you faced that, and what were your learnings from it?
It's a really good question, Sunita. Um, you know, we like to celebrate our successes, don't we? We don't. We rarely speak about our failures.
Yeah.
Um, Healthcare industry in general is pretty good about talking about failures, believe it or not. The other industries, what I have seen is typically there is a little bit of reticence, to talk about failures. But in healthcare industry, we do, right? You look at most of the publications that are coming out, either JAMA or the New England Journal of Medicine. Typically, doctors are very good that way. They want to share their failures and say like, hey, don't do this, right? Like, because the result of what the outcomes are not good. They talk about protocols, they talk about treatment methods and so on. So in the healthcare industry, what I've seen is failures are typically at least shared, if not celebrated, because there is a mindset, right? Like where they say failure is is a stepping stone towards success, right? Provided you don't repeat the same mistakes again and again. So coming to failed innovations, public information that we have on failed innovations, there are a ton of them out there, right? Think about it. Any number of new ideas that came out, be it an Napster, uh, which failed for not technological reasons, but because of legal reasons, right? You were allowing people to they were allowing people to share content that was not that was actually killing somebody else's business, right? The musician, and kind of driving them down, which again created an opportunity for an iPod, not a technology innovation, but that whole iTunes library that kind of came up behind it, and led to a way where the artists were being compensated fairly for the content that they were producing. So there are any number of reasons why things fail. To me, the bigger the bigger principle there is like, how do you face it? In our own company, within United Health Group, we place a lot of importance on emotional quotient or emotional intelligence, especially as it pertains to failure. Innovation is one of our core values in our company, an important core value, because it's right up there along with integrity and compassion, which are very key to the healthcare industry. With innovation, surprisingly, because that's how we are all in our company, in our annual performance appraisals, appraised based on how we delivered on our core values, be it integrity or compassion and so on, right? So when it comes to innovation, till a certain level, it's about how many new ideas did you come up with, and what did you do to make life easy. Did you take a 5-step process, turn it into a 2-step process, Six Sigma, or did you do something along the lines of something much larger, technology, AI, etc.? But after a certain level, at the leadership manager level onwards, it's all about mindset. It's about what do you do, how resilient are you emotionally, how do you deal with failure. Do you really quickly bounce back and work harder towards a different solution, or do you fold and do you know cry it out and you're constantly crying about it? Personally, on the product management front, especially when it comes to like the lean product thinking, there is this metric called MTTP, right? Or mean time to pivot. So you have a vision, you have a strategy, you try out new things, because every release, right, like every sprint, as you come out with new releases, you're supposed to be measuring the outcome of your release. Every release hopefully is a step towards innovation. You're coming up with some new idea, a new way to do this same thing. If not, why are you doing it, right? So for us, in product management, for the longest time, we have thought about MTTP, the mean time to pivot, but we have never been successful with doing that pivot. As in, okay, I put something out, I release something, and I see that it is not working in the production environment. I see that users are not engaging the way I thought they would engage, or it's not having the desired impact. Do you kill it, or do you move forward? Or do you keep doing the same thing, more and more of the same thing? What I see is it's very difficult to kill things. If you're really good at what you do, if the mindset is right, you wouldn't hesitate to kill it and do something else. Invariably, the problem is people don't kill it, and they end up getting cannibalized by somebody else, right? Had Napster been a really innovative company, they could have easily done what Steve Jobs did and created a iTunes library of their own, but they didn't, right? They ended up taking on the music industry, the whole DRM movement started up, and so on, right? So that's how I think about it, Sunita. Failure, the highway is littered with, like, dead bodies, but how do you overcome it, right? Like, people who have succeeded because they have, they've had the right mindset.
Yeah, so it's also the fear to failure also, right? I'm reminded of Kodak's example where they had come out with this digital photography, but they were fearing, or
Yes.
they didn't see that as a potential big win, and the management was not for it, and then eventually they got dropped off from the industry.
Yep.
That is a good point. And you also touched upon factors like social, economic, or government regulations can also depend, or they can also influence the innovation that you are working on, right? I could actually quickly think of a small example of Singapore Airlines, where they came up with this concept of flying to nowhere during pandemic. But then literally they didn't get to fly to anywhere because of this environmentalist that they came out with, the carbon intensive affair. So they were not agreeing to it. So there are other external factors also that I understand for the innovation, apart from what we discussed earlier in terms of culture of the organization, goals, etc. Now, I'm coming to a different segment of this discussion. So Steve Jobs, one of the greatest innovators of our time, used this particular technique to actually get value or insights from his employees. I'm going to use the same technique with you to get some truthful insights about your perspectives, and the technique is called rapid fire. Okay, so just quickly, you can answer whatever that comes into your mind initially on the question. Both of you are supposed to answer. Quickly, a technological innovation that you admire?
Internet.
GPS.
Okay. Audience, you are also welcome to comment your innovation that you admire on the chat. A non-technological innovation that you admire?
I have a different sense to this, because everything is again driven to technology. But yes, I can say the genome editing, press release, printing press, those are actually a good innovation.
I would definitely lean towards printing press too.
Okay. Google versus Netflix versus Facebook versus Apple versus Amazon. Basically, the FANG, which was recently recoined to MAMA, including Microsoft, and the renaming of Facebook to Meta. So, innovation or innovative company from the lot.
Google.
Google.
Okay. Most admired innovator?
I would say, in fact, it's a very different thing, but Tesla, always for the centuries.
I have grown up reading about Richard Feynman, the great physicist. For me, he's up there. Probably one of the greatest innovators of our times.
Okay. A recent innovation that gave you that wow feeling that you have to use it, something like that?
I still feel genome editing, although there's a lot of ethical things, but the genome editing will really solve some of the human health issues and diseases, of course, if we play it very nicely.
Okay.
Netflix for me.
Oh, okay. Process and tools that you use for driving innovation?
It depends on the organization into it, right? It depends on which field you are into it. Open source library definitely really helps a lot. That's where all the latest and the greatest minds work on it non-stop.
Okay.
Time. For me, it's about time, making sure there is time. It's carving out time, whatever you call it, IP sprint or hackathons, or just taking the time to think. Having thinking time carved out is like the most important process step that anybody can take.
Okay, interesting. Any magazine or site on innovation that you can recommend to stay relevant on innovations?
I refer two of them, innovatorsmac.com and SpringsWire.
I read all the publications out there, Sunita. The way I think about it is like I'm looking for problems. I see opportunities.
Okay. That is the innovative mindset in you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have come to the end of the rapid fire. Yeah, no correct answers, so no points. But yeah, thanks a lot for those insights. Moving on, let's pick up some questions from the chat. So there are a lot of questions on the chat. I'm just picking up one from someone called Ravi. So he says, how much an ecosystem contribute to innovation?
I think ecosystem really plays a huge, and like say, for example, sometimes the companies goes through acquisitions and mergers that could actually take your completely a different priorities on your backlog of your innovation itself, right? So definitely ecosystem plays an important role. Mergers and acquisitions, market trends, pandemic like situations and all have completely changed the ecosystem, right? To all the black swans that we need to look forward. Yeah, they play a very, very important role.
Okay.
To me, yeah, ecosystem as in culture of the organization plays a very important role. As much as you see ideas being celebrated, ideas being encouraged, it in turn leads to others, like to also start doing the same. And as much as ideas not being encouraged or not being ignored, indifference causes people to also go the other way around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but that will take us into a different topic altogether about how do you create that culture. But culture does play a very important role because it gets people to either follow or not follow, right? the popular culture within the company.
Very true. Another question is from George Jacob. Any thinking techniques to adopt while innovating?
Lata?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from the childhood itself, right? So obviously your parents are the one big influencers, your teachers, your colleagues are big influencers. So obviously the education system itself is now changing, right? So the thinking pattern, your foundational thinking happens from your home and education system. I think there are a lot of changes that's happening. Current parents are far very educated. So next generation, that innovative thinking is coming about. Inventive thinking is also coming about. People are being encouraged to be a scientist, right? And be a big technocrats. That's where I think a big changes are coming of the mind shift. And schools and colleges, they are doing a very experiment design-based thinking, right? Which typically happens in the organization. That's a buzzword, right? Design-based thinking workshops they do. So it's also coming for, I have a 4 years child. She learned all that alphabets all through a design-based thinking. She doesn't know, she never learned that in a serial with alphabets that I would have learned or anybody would have learned of my generation. I think from there, the whole thinking mindset comes. Then obviously everything falls in a nice place, right? So by the time you come and join any organization, it's part of your DNA.
I think of process, right? What happens is a lot of us who are on the technology side of things always can only think about how our technology is being used, right? Kind of makes you put your blinders on. What I have been encouraging, at least with my team members, is like, hey, go beyond that. Understand the process. Where do you think your process starts and where do you think your process ends? So as much as product people and engineers can think in terms of process, you're going to find ways to reduce the steps that it takes to make that process easier, right? Our problem is half the time we are thinking about the product and technology. As much as we can come out of that well, right, and look out and see what actually are people doing, observe what exactly they're trying to do or what problem they're trying to solve, gives you better ideas to be a innovator, right? If you know all the technologies, and if you understand how to write code and how to write software and how to make things work, now the problem is application, right? Where do you apply it? For application, you need to look around. Otherwise, no one is going to write it and give it to you. That's how I think about it, Sunita.
Yeah, it's all about being open and having that mindset to probably you can follow blogs of and certain innovators who are already there. And once you have the hang of it, you'll literally start thinking different on any mundane thing. You will start thinking of how come this is possible this way, and you will slowly have that mindset. This is my perspective. So Nishant is asking, any good publication or website that a new technology enthusiast can start with, something that covers very basic and fundamental aspects.
Yeah, I gave a site, right? It's all talks about the technology only, right? The few sites which I gave you, that's very helpful.
Okay.
NASSCOM's product website. Come here, take a look at it. We have a lot of content on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I can type it and send it. One, obviously, I said innovatorsmac.com is awesome. Actually, you have so many lectures and series. It covers not just the technology, it covers even the latest and the greatest about this environment, climate, all those great stuffs, and also spring wire, right? This both are very good, actually. I can type it on after this and send it to the forum.
Yeah. We are actually on top of the hour right now, and so we do have some more couple of questions, but yeah, we are on top of the hour right now. Thank you so much for your insights and all those wonderful stories. And I'm sure I've taken away a lot of things. I hope the audience also enjoyed it as much as I did. And just a quick summary before I hand over to Vinay. So we were talking about different types of innovations. And also the approach towards a particular type of innovation by an organization can largely depend on the management culture, the long-term vision of the company. It could also be based on the culture of the company, the core competencies of that company. But whatever said and done, innovation and basically delivering innovation through sustainable systems is the lifeblood for innovation, I would say. And would like to end this with a quick, inspiring quote from Steve Jobs: "Stay hungry, stay foolish." Thank you so much. Over to you, Vinay.
Thank you, Sunita, for such a compelling discussion. You brought some really candid takeaways and shares from our speakers, Lata and Yogesh. Things like the analogies around don't be a restaurant, be more like a chef, how analog and digital clocks work, moving from mouse to swipe to speech to AI to guessing what people want. And also very interesting that Lata had shared about her Monday morning meetings. I learned a lot of new Japanese words, asakai and shimakai. These are strategies that I'm sure many of our other product managers and team leaders and innovators will implement. And the other thing is also, I think there are many useful discussions that are happening on our Slack community, where there are thousands of product managers. I would encourage all the attendees to be part of it. We intend to enable you with more learning and development activities. Our next webinar is on April 28th. It's on product success in blue ocean versus red ocean strategy. That will be as compelling as this. Again, I would like to thank all of you for your time on Saturday evening. Thank you, Dr. Lata Iyer. Thank you, Yogesh Rao, and thank you, Pavitra.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you so much.